All right, welcome everybody. I am Matt here with my awesome partner Ian on the other side of the globe, and we're going to do this is our third season of doing the Q&A stuff, and this will be kind of our episode two working in Aussie ski season. So again, we're going to record this. We'll post it so it'll be available to anybody that wants it. And we'll post some links in the chat, and I'll also kind of monitor the chat. We sort of coalesced, excuse me, some general questions, and then we'll answer or get to everything we can in the chat. So feel free to post away in there. But um, I guess first things first, Ian, why isn't Australia the Alps?
Well, to be honest, we don't have the soaring mountains of Europe or the Rockies. We have we can you can have fun in the Australian ski resorts. It a lot of Australians do a season in Australia first, get a taste for it, and then go off to do seasons in North America or Europe or Japan. There is a bit of a great party program and lots of events. And so you can certainly have a good fun season in Australia. We probably don't have the main powder days, as many powder days as Japan, but we certainly get some lovely spring bumps, and you can always have a good time.
Nice. Yeah, one thing I wanted to see if you could do too, maybe is just do a quick run through of, kind of some of the profiles of the main resorts or whatever you want to touch on in each one briefly, harder to get to or accessibility issues, things like that. You want to touch on that quick?
Yeah, no problem. I'll just run the resorts profiles from um, north to south. We will post a link to an article with much more detail, so you can look through those. So we'll start off with Selwyn. Mount Selwyn had a major fire in I think it was 2019. Everything burnt down, so it's a completely new resort, great new facilities. There's affordable housing in the area at Adaminaby, and also the resort does put up its key staff in affordable housing at the actual resort. Things I like about them is there's free lessons for the staff, so a great little resort if you are a beginner skier. Things I don't particularly like about it is it's a lower mountain, so the snow cover can be limited and the seasons can be a little bit shorter than the other resorts I'm going to mention. Um, so Thredbo is the next resort I'm doing. Thredbo wins the Aussie Ski Resort of the Year all the time. It has the biggest vertical drop in Australia. It has good lifts. It's a more upmarket resort. They have very big events. It's a fun Four Seasons resort too. So they've got a golf course there. They've got great hiking, amazing mountain biking. So they've got lift service mountain biking. So there's opportunities for year round work at Thredbo. Things I don't like about Thredbo is the housing situation. It is extremely poor. The chances of finding an affordable place to live in Thredbo itself is extremely thin. So most people actually live in Jindabyne, 35 kilometers away, and commute up each day. Next one I'm going to do is Perisher. That is Australia's biggest ski resort. It's Vail owned. There's good opportunities. If you do a good job at Perisher, you can open the door for opportunities in North America to at the other Vail Resort mountains. Things I don't like about Perisher is the housing situation. Again, is very, very limited. So most people live in Jindabyne, 35 kilometers away, or the 32 kilometers away. And the traffic up to Perisher can be extremely bad. And the car park can shut early, so commuting to that resort is extremely difficult. You can take the ski tube. Hopefully that's an expensive way to get there. Hopefully that is part of your contract. You'll get a ski tube ticket. If not, it's something you guys really have to consider. It's an expensive way to get there. Um, so The options for those two New South Wales resorts is to actually live in an alternative is to actually live in Jindabyne and work in Jindabyne, and then travel for skiing. I would be looking at that scenario if you're planning on working 4 or 5 days a week. Um, and then so just cutting down your commutes. Commuting to Thredbo and Perisher from Jindabyne can be a big pain in the backside, so you want to limit it. Next one I've got up is Charlotte Pass. Now that's a little resort, a three-lift resort, just above Perisher. So you get access that via over snow transport. And because it's hard to get to, everybody gets put up in employee housing if you're working there, and everybody gets fed. So that's a cool little resort. It has good access to the backcountry. It's doesn't have the huge party scene of the other resorts or Jindabyne, but it's pretty user friendly.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the Victorian ski resorts. Falls Creek is another Vale Resort owned mountain. We've nominated Falls Creek as the best resort for employees for 2025. So they've had some major housing developments with 500 new beds coming through, or was it 200 new beds came online for 2024, and they're looking at another 300
Wow.
beds coming online for 2025 in a little village 10 kilometers away from the main resort. It'll be new housing. There's a free bus between the Bogong Village and the resort, and there's also a pub going up at Bogong Village. So kind of an interesting little option there. So yeah, well done to Falls Creek for bringing in all that new housing online. Other things I do like about Falls Creek is their summer program. It's probably got the most advanced summer offering compared to all the other Victorian ski resorts. Another option for housing is to live in Mount Beauty. So that's 30 kilometers away in the valley. Mount Beauty is an interesting little town. It's placed sort of halfway between Falls Creek and Mount Hotham, which is another Vale Resorts property. So if you have a ski pass, you can ski on both of those mountains,
Wow.
providing some interesting options for your skiing. So yeah, consider Mount Beauty. If you're living and working in Mount Beauty, it's a pretty interesting opportunities there.
Wow.
Next up is Mount Hotham. As I mentioned, it is Vale Resorts owned. It's considered Australia's powder capital. It has great terrain, a lot of nice access to some backcountry there. Generally steeper and snowier than most of the other mountains in Australia. Um, I think the big problem with Mount Hotham is its accommodation. It is limited. There's proposals in to build some employee housing, but it is severely limited. So you can travel via a lot of staff live at Dinner Plain, which is 13 kilometers away, and commute in. That does cut down on your socializing, your nighttime socializing, because there isn't a late bus back to Dinner Plain. So um, that's other options to work at Mount Hotham is to live at Bright, which is 48 k's away, or Harrietville, which is 25 kilometers away. The road up to Mount Hotham is treacherous, so you'll need a good four-wheel drive, or the ability to carpool with somebody with a decent four-wheel drive, or you can do it in a two-wheel drive with chains. But again, that's a difficult commute. You probably don't want to be doing it every day. It's just an expensive way. The Victorian resorts, um, they're run by the same organization, and getting onto the mountain is about $64 per car. So if you're doing that by yourself, it makes it very uneconomical to work up. It puts work up in the resorts and live in the valleys.
Wow.
Um, it's it, it you know you're not going to be making big money anyway, and you do not want to be paying $64 a day. So you can carpool. If you can carpool with four, you're obviously looking at $16 a day. But again, it's a hassle. It's a long drive. I'll admit Australians are genuinely shitty drivers in the snow. You get one idiot crash their car on a tight mountain road, and then you're late for work. So, yeah, it's something you have to consider. Now, next one up is Mount Buller, which is the closest major resort to Melbourne, about 3 hours away. We nominated Buller as the best resort for employees last year. It's a cool little village. There's reasonable on-mountain housing, fun terrain, fun events, and a vibrant party scene in the village. So, reasonable housing. I spoke to one of my friends who did a season there a couple of years ago. You're looking at, shared accommodation, 2 to 4 people per room, in older lodges, with a kitchen facility. It's tight. It's comfortable. You can put up with it for a season. But generally, yeah, don't expect a glamorous lodge to live in with a hot tub and things like that. It's budget. Think of it like as uh, living in a hostel all year round. So that's what you're looking at with Buller Falls and Hotham.
Nice.
Um, so
Yeah,
Matt's going to put up a link to the article. I don't know if you've already done that,
I
but
did.
much more information about the main resorts in Australia.
Yep. Yep. I threw it in the chat, so a little more detail there. But no. Oh, go ahead.
Excellent. I'm going to throw. Next section is mountain jobs, types of jobs that you can do on the mountain. I'm going to throw to Matt for the first one because he's an old mountain ops operator, and he can tell you about some on mountain jobs that you can find in the Australian ski resorts.
Yeah, I'll kind of touch on a few here. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know what some of these are, but think lifties, ticket scanners, instructors, mechanics. Um, and look for departments in, you might know this better, but I know in North America, it's like I'll give you a couple examples of really good jobs. One would be under base operations. Some places it's mountain operations, sometimes they're separate, but one of the ones that, in Vail was the bowl patrol. So essentially you just you maintain the outhouses and the bathrooms, but you literally get to ski all day. You do 4 on, 3 days off. So little roles like that aren't, because I can tell you right now, if you go search for that role on their site, it doesn't exist. But it's just inside. I forget what it's titled, but it's just kind of funny. It's hidden in there, but it's a super awesome job for a seasonal person because you get to ski your brains out. And a lot of them would get housing, So base ops, look at base ops. Mountain security is another good one. There's all kinds of stuff, but sometimes you got to kind of look for the fissures in there because it's not always, there's other things in there that aren't always obvious, I guess is what I'm saying. Um, Pros with a lot of those, you get lift passes, accommodation, like I said, a lot of times depending on that role, um, but yeah. So, and I don't know, like with your season with some of these Ians, I know, or Ian, some of the hours are limited because the snow is poor, but you mentioned some of the resorts up top that were a little bit lower elevation. So like have rock skis, so to say.
Yeah, basically, if you're working a lift role and the snow's not great, there'll be limited number of lifts open and limited hours for you. So, having a backup part-time job at the bar at night or a restaurant is very much worth considering.
Yeah. Well, and another thing to point out here too is, especially if you're going to do like the bowl patrol crew or something along those lines. I mean, you have to be a pretty legit skier. So just make sure because they will test you, at least here. I mean, and I'm sure it's like that most places, but you are going to have to do a ski test. So if you don't ski or board, uh, yeah, you probably don't want to do something like bowl patrol. But if you do, like it's going to be rock star. You're going to be skiing a lot. And now, like even lift operators, unfortunately, didn't get a lot of ski time because they were so short staffed. There weren't enough to go around. So it's like you don't even get to ski anywhere or get a little time to ski to your next post or whatever. It's kind of nuts. But obviously, you got hotel work all around, cleaners, front desk, drivers, bar work. Pros think of housing oftentimes. Ski passes, yeah, I think that was mostly the case where, at least in North America, seems like ski
Similar,
passes.
similar in Australia.
Yeah, especially with the bigger resorts. So, um, and then of course you got restaurant work, front of house, night work, probably food involved plus tips. So night work would mean ski days or snowboard days. So that's a good thing. Retail ski shops, rental techs, boot fitters. Um, yes, any kind of ski tech work, those are good options. And you could probably speak more like what's at locally there too, Ian. But yeah, pro deals, free tuning. I mean, even when you work for the resort in general, you're going to probably have some sort of pro deal. Um, Long shifts often, day hours. So maybe not as much skiing, but hopefully you find a gig that, I know here sometimes you can find a 4 day on, 3 day off. So that's pretty nice if you do want to have a life outside of work.
Yeah, I might jump in for the retail roles because I was a ski tech. Sorry, I was a rental tech for a few years. You get a lot of split shifts, so you start early in the morning, and a lot of the rental work is after the ski lift shut. So you can pick up a lot of hours when the ski lifts are closed, which is always beneficial because it fills your bank balance and doesn't limit your ski time. And you also get exposed to a whole range of great pro deals. A lot of the ski companies want you in their equipment. So you can pick up super cheap helmets, goggles, skis, etc. If you're really into your gear, a role as a ski tech or a ski rental person is worth considering.
Nice.
What was I going to say? One thing that in Australia, if you're working in hotels, they really like all-rounders. So somebody who can jump behind the bar has an RSA, which is a responsible serving of alcohol certification. Somebody who can help with kitchen prep, do some cleaning. It's generally all hands on deck. There's very, very long hours in Australian ski resorts during the school holiday season. There's some peak weekends especially if the snow falls. But long weekends are peak weekends, so you expect to do extremely long hours during that. And then when school goes back and it's midweek, that's when you get to do your skiing. You'll get more time off there. So employers are looking for crew who aren't going to crumble when the hard work needs to be done. But they will reward you with time off, say on Tuesday, midweek times when there's not so many tourists on the hill.
Nice. You want to touch on some housing? You want to talk about that a little bit there?
Yeah, we can't ignore the housing crisis in the ski resorts. Let's go to Jindabyne, where a lot of the New South Wales ski workers will live for Perisher and Thredbo. You're typically looking at $400 to $700 per room for a ski season rental. So do the maths. You're going to have to be sharing those if you want to not lose a lot of money over the ski season. So typically looking at 2 to 3 people per room. Um, that's off mountain, down valley housing, and it's similar situation in Victoria. If you get off the mountain and you're 20 k's down the valley, that's what you're probably looking at. Up on the mountains, it is insanely expensive and probably well beyond the means of anybody backpacking down here. These are properties for people who have access to mum and dad's credit card and don't mind losing a shit ton of money over the season. So I saw some listings for Falls Creek for a pokey little 2 bedroom unit. You're looking at 40,000 for the season. So yeah, it's insane. I even saw one listing for a car parking spot. So just a bit of concrete on the mountain at Bulla, $350 a week. So you can't even park your van there. So it is extremely expensive. If you're thinking of being able to, you'll find affordable housing on the mountain. Think again, it's not going to happen. You really need to be well connected with somebody who actually owns the property to get a reasonable deal.
Hey, Ian, Josh asked if the 4 to 700 per room, is that monthly rate or weekly rate?
Weekly rate, guys. So if you're sharing, you're probably looking at about a day and a half's work to cover your rent. Um, Sometimes more.
Hmm.
Yep. So it is expensive.
Yep. And obviously, if you're down valley, have a reliable vehicle, preferably four-wheel drive, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna
And
do it.
and yeah, carpooling is just such an easy way to save some money. Just
Yep.
if you the tradition is if you are getting a lift from somebody who has a nice four-wheel drive or whatever and is looking after you, you sling them a few bucks or buy them a few beers at the end of the day because they will have paid for will have typically paid for a resort entry pass or paying a parking fee, a resort parking, a season parking fee. So yeah, look after if you're getting a lift, look after your driver.
Nice. You want to jump into the visa rules? I'm going to go ahead and as you talk about the working holiday visa stuff here, Ian, I'll paste those links as you talk about them here real quick.
Yep. Very simple rule. Ski work does not count for your 88 days. So if you think you're going to get a second year on your visa by doing ski work, you are wrong. This is a really frustrating thing for me to see is employers don't tell people this. And when a backpacker finds out that their work does not count, they leave or they don't show up. So be perfectly clear, it does not count. If you do construction work in the ski towns, that will count as towards your 88 days. And there's a lot of construction work in Australian ski resorts in the lead up to the season. That is a worldwide phenomenon. Everybody's trying to get projects finished before lifts open, and there's some very good money to be made. If you're a skilled tradie, consider coming down early because basically you can earn some very, very good money and also be in line to secure some accommodation down valley accommodation if you need to do that. If if you're working at a place like Bulla, you typically your employer will often put you up in a lodge while you're working for him or her in the lead up to the ski season. So yeah, again, I've done that multiple times. It's very, very good money, well worth considering.
Nice. I just put the 417 rules link up.
Yeah, that's just going to show you that ski resort work in the hospitality sector certainly does not count. I hope I made myself clear there. I've mentioned it about 4 times, but it really does need to sink in.
Yep. And do you want to talk about the 417 versus 462? Or I'm posting both links here. So,
Yeah, it's the same deal.
okay.
It's just a different visa for different countries. Same deal, does not count.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep rolling. Try to get as much info to everybody here. But do you want to jump into the needs, values, and don't get exploited?
Yeah, yeah, let's go. What employers need? They need reliable people who will show up for every shift on. There is a party scene in Australian ski resorts. Yeah, young people are there to have fun. We would fully acknowledge that, but you do need to get paid for your hangovers. You have to show up. Pack your deodorant, your breath mints, etc., your smile that you put on no matter how hard you're hurting, and get a day done. You just can't. Employers won't tolerate people who don't show up, and the same goes for powder days. You need to show up if you're rostered on for a powder day. And Matt, you want to explain what happens if you're working for a lift company and you're not there on a powder day?
Yeah, it doesn't go well. I think that's all that really needs to be said because it's
You
chaos.
you don't get away with it either.
Oh, you're not going to have a job probably because they know. Well, I think the biggest mistake was, especially if you work in a place that has related resorts, because when you go and they would make the mistake of scanning their pass down valley at Beaver Creek. Well, their boss if they don't show and it's a powder day. They're Googling or not Googling, they're searching in the system for everyone that didn't show that day to see if there's any past scans. It's like,
So,
damn,
so
man, like brutal.
perfect example is if you're living in Mount Beauty or Bright or one of those valley towns in for Falls Creek and Hotham, and you're scheduled on to work at Falls Creek and you think you'll get away with it by skiing Mount Hotham, it doesn't work. You are going to get picked up.
Yep. What we've talked about getting there early and kind of, I know this is sort of in relation to Canada, but trying to get feet on the street a little early, maybe work a construction job. I mean, does that play into like the 88 days? Is it possible to get there early and do construction work? How's that work in
Yeah,
Australia?
absolutely possible. It also makes you much more employable. If you're a person who's looking for ski work and you're already in the region, an employer is going to take note of that. If you say, "Oh, I'm interested in doing a ski season in Australia," and you're in Port Douglas or Broome, employers will think, "Oh, geez, is this person really going to come down, travel across the country to do a ski season?" So
Yeah.
getting in town early is certainly helps. There's lots of work. There's farm work too in the region. So if you need to tick off your 88 days with farm work, there's some opportunities there as well. Yeah, especially in Victoria, there's a big hops harvest just before the ski season. There's fruit picking going on in the Victorian Valley. So yeah, some good opportunities to tick off your 88 days. And that's what employers like to see. If you can say, "Hey, here's evidence that I've done my 88 days and I'm available for the whole season," and employers are going to take note of that and go, "Yep, this guy's nice and organized, and he's not going to be a flight risk.
Well,
That person's not going to leave early to go and do their 88 days."
yeah. Well, and another point too, like between, we're talking about what employers need, what they value, multilingual, people who've done their 88 days, all arounders. But I think another point that you and I've talked about this, but in those 10 things, it says reliable people, available for the whole season, long shifts, and all arounders, those sort of things. So I say that because at least for me and a lot of the other folks in our department, it was like there are a lot of opportunities. Obviously, you don't have to do this all the time, but if you get with like the street team and you go do events for a certain department one day, or you do closing day, I mean, those are great opportunities to rub elbows with some amazing people, both from the resort, from the town, Forest Service here. I met incredibly cool people that, you know, every little bit helps you make those relationships while you're there. Do those little extra things. It's good for you in the eyes of your employer, but you make some pretty flippin' awesome relationships by doing those little things.
Yeah, they love people with some hard skills. So somebody who's multilingual, especially if you speak Chinese languages, that is absolute gold. That's a thing that you should be waving around, saying, "Hey, I can speak Chinese," because we get a lot of Chinese visitors, and that is a really valuable skill to have for your employer. Also, if you've got mechanical skills, if you can fix a snowblower, or you're happy to go out and do some hard grunt work of clearing snow, this is what employers are really interested in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Talk about the third part of this was don't get exploited. So I'm not, yeah, you were talking about employers offering cash. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic here. There are employers who will exploit people. They won't pay their penalty rates. Some will target people from a non-English speaking background, which so you look after them if make sure that they're getting paid correctly. The best way to make sure that you are getting paid correctly is to go to Fair Work Australia, so you know your pay rates, you know your penalty rates for working on public holidays and Sundays. You know your overtime rates, and you can make sure that you are getting paid correctly. There's also, if you aren't getting paid correctly, there's you can go through Fair Work Australia to
I just
to
posted the link too for it.
lodge complaints. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, I just put it on. Yep, Fair Work Australia. I just threw it in the chat for anybody that wants it.
Yeah. And yeah, just look after each other as well.
So final tips before we close this out. I mean, I'll keep looking for other questions. I think we covered a lot of stuff clearly. I think coalesced it well. So I'll keep looking for last questions, but if you want to give some final tips.
Yeah. First of all, we probably should mention that the hiring process in Australia, ski resorts, is a bit of a shit show. There's a lot of applications being thrown out there. We've built a system on CNX season that is a lot more targeted. And we've got some really good employers on that. So if you haven't created a profile on our site, we'd definitely recommend doing that. Um, because you probably don't want to be throwing out your resume all over the place, because that causes a few problems for both employees and employers. One of the things that we do recommend is you follow all the application processes that are set up by employers when you're applying for a job. There's no point cold calling employers or posting your resumes online. That's just a complete and utter waste of time. Employers are often getting 40 to 50 applications per job, and they're very, very quick to reject them. So if they call for a cover letter and it doesn't have a cover letter, it's out the door straight away. Don't be put off by the fact that there's so many resumes floating around. It's because a lot of the time it's because people send so many. They just apply for jobs that they aren't qualified for. They don't have the necessary visa for, or they don't have the necessary experience. So there's an enormous number of resumes that get rejected. If you don't have the necessary experience, if you say you want to be a ski patroller and you have no ski experience whatsoever, just don't even bother. It's just wasting everybody's time. Be very strategic and pick the jobs you're going for, and make sure you tick all the boxes in the application process.
Hey, real quick,
Yeah,
Ian, Chrissy asked the best way to find bar/restaurant work as online. I am only finding the mountain work.
yeah. Well, what's happening is a lot of those people aren't hiring yet. They leave it very, very late.
Hmm.
And then there's this enormous scramble for bar staff. It's crazy. We've been encouraging the ski industry to actually start hiring earlier. Um, Again, I recommend going through our site. We've got a few positions available. We're trying to get more employers on the site, but they are very, very stuck in their ways, and their ways are failing. They leave their hiring way too late. They get tons of junk resumes, and it's a problem. So yeah, definitely keep plugging away. Just remember that those jobs will come online a bit later, but definitely get on board our site.
Yeah, you can always reach out to us too if you have specific questions. I just posted Ian's email as well as mine. So if you have a specific question or think of something later, just shoot us an email. We're always happy to help. So whatever we can do, if we don't know the answer, and we may not, but we'll know where to get it and where to send you. So we'll definitely
Yeah,
jump in there.
if you if you've had a job offer and you've got a few questions, you're not quite sure, just shoot us an email, tell us your situation, and we'll say, yeah, this is a good idea, or yeah, I can see these problems for you down the track. So we're there to help.
Yep. Yep. So I don't know. I think Chrissy obviously is running into the stuff on mine. We see it, with the social media and stuff. It's tough.
Yeah. Should we
So,
go through some more final tips?
yep. Let's wrap it up with that.
Yeah, let's okay. Oh, my dog's about to go ballistic. That's my dog in the background.
That's what
We'll
happens
have
when
to
you
edit
do
this bit
live.
out of in post-production. Tix, go to your bed. Go on, go to your bed. We've got a visitor coming. She's
That's all
doing
right.
her gardening duties. So final tips. Spend your money on ski boots and not skis, because you may need a pair of rock skis straight away. did you get, there's a bunch of ski sales that'll happen just before the ski season. They're very, very useful to go to.
Hmm.
Each town will typically have a ski sales, just for people like you guys coming into town a week before. Don't buy a pair of brand new skis right now, because they may get completely destroyed in the first couple of weeks if the snow is very poor. So yeah, hold off on that. Another thing to do is to learn how to tune your own skis. Um, Saves you a bunch of money, but also you can share those skills with other people and tune skis for people, and they may exchange beer for you or whatever, give you a free meal at a restaurant or look after you in different ways. So there's a trading system that goes on in ski resorts. It's wise to understand that, and get involved. A perfect example is housekeepers typically have a large amount of alcohol because people leave it in their rooms at the end. So they'll gladly swap a bottle of bourbon or whatever for a free ski tune. So yeah, just get in on that trading system. We've done don't take your powder days off, follow the application process.
Yep. Yeah, your
What
friends.
Yeah, look after your friends. There's yeah, it's especially out at night. Don't go completely ballistic on your first couple of nights, especially if you're living in employee housing. Because basically, if you play up, you can be made of an example of and get sent out of your employee housing, and that pretty much ends your season. So if somebody's going a bit crazy on the booze, just tell them to pull their heads in a little bit, and look after them because yeah, ski resorts are dangerous places. You don't want to be upsetting people in them with some drunken stupidity. Happens all the time, but
Yep.
um, it's not a good idea to be the first person doing that.
Yep. Like driving a Zamboni down the access road. Yeah, probably a bad
We
idea.
might add that to the list of stupid things not to do. We did a podcast about stupid things to do in the ski season that will at ski resorts that'll wreck your season. And driving the Zamboni to the supermarket was one of them. That didn't end well. Oh, Zamboni is I've got to explain it to people. Zamboni is the machine that runs around the ice rink and smooths it out. It goes about 5 kilometers an hour and weighs about 2 tons.
It
Yeah,
looks like a
it's
giant dumpster.
yeah, it's they're strictly for ice rinks only, not for general roads.
Well, I think that's it. I put our emails in there. If anybody has additional questions or needs help, just fire us an email. And yeah, we'll be happy to help any way we can. So thanks everybody for tuning in.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Hi, guys. Just a quick little bit of a post record. One thing I forgot to mention is your pub jackets. Buy a pub jacket, which is a crappy old brightly coloured thing, because if you take a nice expensive black puffer jacket to a bar with a bunch of Australian drunks there, it will go missing. So, yeah, get yourself a pub jacket. Thanks, guys.